On my 32nd birthday, my stepmother's ring split the skin under my eye, in the middle of our company's town hall. My father didn't flinch. He just sliced the sheet cake and told the crowd, "Let's keep this celebratory." They thought I'd swallow it like always. They didn't know I run compliance, and I'd been staging tonight for a very public ending. My name is Rhea Vale. The room is an ecosystem of lies, 28 floors above the Grayford City grid. Norcrest Dynamics calls this the Skyview Hall, a glass box designed to make employees feel both powerful and completely exposed. Tonight, it's a failure of aesthetics. Clusters of sad, silver balloons cling to the ceiling, their strings drooping in the recycled air. A vinyl banner, already peeling at one corner, screams, "Employee Appreciation plus Q3 wins." It's a mandatory celebration. Attendance is part of our quarterly metrics. I am 32 years old. I am the acting head of compliance. My armor for the evening is a stark white silk blouse, buttoned exactly 1 inch below the collarbone. It's clean, sterile, and unforgiving. Beneath my left eye, a careful application of high-coverage concealer and a slash of vengeance red lipstick attempts to mask a truth. The makeup feels like spackle over a structural flaw, a thin, cracking layer over an old, persistent shadow of blue and purple. I am standing near the audiovisual station, a position I selected for its clear sightline to the podium and the exits. Lorna Hale, my stepmother, is holding court. As Chief People Officer, performance is her primary metric. She lifts a flute of champagne, not the cheap Prosecco served to the rank and file, but a private bottle of Veuve Clicquot kept for the C-suite. The light from the spots catches her rings, a constellation of diamonds that serve as her corporate brass knuckles. "And I just want to say," she beams, her voice amplified by the room's speakers, a perfect mix of warmth and authority, "that our Q3 success isn't about numbers, it's about people, it's about family." The word family hangs in the air, heavy and toxic. She scans the room, her gaze a spotlight that lands, as intended, on me. She pivots, stepping off the low stage, walking toward me. The crowd parts. This is part of the show, the CPO engaging with the staff. She stops 2 inches from me. The scent of her perfume, heavy, expensive, suffocating, is an invasion. The smile on her face is pure, weaponized HR. She leans in, the microphone held low at her hip, her voice dropping to a proprietary whisper meant only for me, though her smile remains fixed for the audience. "Smile wider, Rhea," she murmurs, the command sharp as glass. "You look funereal. It's your birthday, for God's sake." I just watch her. Her smile tightens. It's the micro-expression I've cataloged 1,000 times. The flare of the nostril, the slight lift of the upper lip. It's the prelude. She moves with the casual swiftness of someone who has never been held accountable. Her left hand, the one without the microphone, lifts. She angles her body perfectly, using her shoulder to block the view from the main event camera positioned at the back of the room. Her hair, a perfect blonde helmet, swings to obscure the angle from the podium cam. Then the strike. It's not a dramatic, open-palmed movie slap. It's a targeted assault. The backs of her fingers, heavy with the weight of her platinum-set rings, connect with the delicate skin just below my left eye. It's the same spot already bruised. The impact is sharp, stinging, and deep. A diamond edge splits the skin. I taste metal. The coppery tang of my own blood floods the inside of my cheek. She pulls back, her smile never wavering. She is already turning back to the crowd, lifting her microphone. "A special happy birthday to our very own head of compliance." The room erupts in polite, obligatory applause. A few people in the front row, the ones who had a clearer view, flinch, but they clap anyway. They always clap. I stand perfectly still. I do not raise a hand to my face, though the cheek is already pulsing with a hot, sharp fire. I feel the slow, wet track of a single drop of blood tracing a line from the cut toward the corner of my mouth. My father, Graham Vale, CEO of Norcrest Dynamics, is standing by the cake. He saw it. His eyes met mine for a fraction of a second during the impact. He registered the blow, and then he looked away. Now, he picks up the comically large silver cake knife. The bakery-applied frosting reads, "Happy Birthday, Rhea," in cheerful blue script. Graham Vale doesn't flinch. He doesn't look at his wife. He doesn't look at his bleeding daughter. He presses the serrated edge of the knife into the center of the R in my name. He applies steady, surgical pressure, cutting a clean line through the words, scraping the foil-covered cardboard base. He lifts the first piece onto a plate, his hand perfectly steady. He turns to the crowd, to the nearest cluster of regional VPs. "Let's keep this celebratory," he announces, his voice the calm, reasonable baritone of command. "We have a lot to get through tonight. This is the signal. This is the corporate mandate. We saw nothing. We will say nothing. The cake is served. This is the culture of silence they have cultivated for 2 decades. They thought I'd swallow it. The blood, the humiliation, the cake, like always. But they don't know me. They know the quiet girl at the board meetings. They know the interim head of compliance who processes paperwork. They don't know the woman who has spent 10 years auditing their lives. They don't know that I run compliance. And they certainly don't know that tonight wasn't a party. It was a deposition. I move. My legs are steady. Each step is measured. I walk past the catering table, past the frozen smiles of the marketing team. I walk directly to the podium my stepmother just vacated. I don't grab the main microphone. I reach into the pocket of my slacks and retrieve my personal cell phone. I place it firmly on the lectern, angling its base against the stand holding the PA microphone. I tap the screen once. A single, sterile beep cuts through the murmur of the room. It's not loud, but it's sharp enough to pierce the manufactured denial. It's the activation tone for a legal-grade, encrypted recording application. A small, solid red light illuminates on the phone's screen. Every eye in the room snaps to me. The applause dies instantly. The silence that follows is heavy, absolute. Graham freezes. The knife still in his hand. Lorna, halfway to her seat, turns, her face a mask of confusion. In the crowd, the reactions are a perfect map of the company's moral rot. The junior associates look terrified, their eyes wide, darting between me, Lorna, and Graham. The senior managers look annoyed. This is an unscheduled deviation from the program. A few of the VPs, the ones implicated in the audits I've been running, exchange nervous, tight-lipped glances. Jim from legal is already rubbing his temples. A few people near the back actually turn their bodies away. A physical refusal to bear witness. The culture of silence, made manifest. I lean toward the podium. I don't need to shout. The microphone is hot. I let them see the blood, now clearly visible, a stark red line against my white skin. I say one sentence. My voice is not a victim's. It is not angry, or shaky, or thin. It is cold, precise, and final. Documentation begins now. And as if summoned by the words, the room changes. It's an event override I scheduled with AV 2 weeks ago, buried in a work order for the mandatory ethics town hall portion of the evening. The soft, flattering amber spotlights high in the ceiling snap off. In their place, the harsh, fluorescent white floodlights used for live broadcasts and shareholder Q&As ignite, bathing the room in the unforgiving glare of a surgical theater. There is a loud whir from the back of the hall. The main broadcast camera, previously inert, swivels and zooms, focusing directly on the podium, on me. A red tally light on its chassis blinks on. On the large monitors flanking the stage, the Q3 Wins graphic vanishes, replaced by the intranet's default live Q&A feed. The feed and the recording are now streaming directly to the company intranet, to every desktop in the building, to the secure server I established with our third-party auditors. Lorna takes a step forward, her face finally losing its composure, replaced by a dark, furious confusion. My father's name is a hiss on her lips. But he can't help her. No one can. The doors are metaphorically locked. They are all trapped inside my agenda. The party is over. The hearing has begun. The harsh white light of the Q&A broadcast floods the Skyview Hall, bleaching all the color from the festive balloons. It's an interrogator's light. It finds the new, wet line of blood on my cheek and the old, faded bruise beneath it. The room is a vacuum, all the corporate platitudes sucked out, replaced by a dense, terrible silence. Lorna's face is a canvas of cracking makeup, her chief people officer's smile frozen in a rictus of disbelief. Her eyes darting to my father, Graham. He's still holding the cake knife, a smear of blue frosting on the silver. He looks at me, not with concern, but with the cold fury of a CEO whose quarterly presentation has just been torpedoed. They think this is chaos. They think this is a spontaneous, emotional failure. They have forgotten how they trained me. A family image is a powerful corporate tool. It teaches everyone where the lines are. It teaches them to look away. I learned the lesson at 12. The memory is sensory, triggered by the smell of sugary frosting from the cart nearby. It wasn't a town hall. It was a kitchen, smelling of vanilla extract and burnt sugar. Her hand, the same one I just saw, but 20 years younger, connecting with the side of my face. The shock wasn't the pain. It was the silence that followed. I stood behind the swinging kitchen door, my ear ringing, listening. I heard my father's voice from the dining room, cheerful, performative. "Where's the birthday girl?" He struck a match. I heard the whoosh as he lit the candles. He knew what had happened. He had been 10 feet away. He pushed the door open just a crack, his face obscured by the jam. He didn't look at my reddening cheek. He looked at the floor. "Rhea," he said, his voice low, reasonable. "Everyone is waiting. Don't ruin the evening." I swallowed the blood in my mouth. I straightened my dress. I walked out and smiled. I learned that the party, the image of the party, was more important than the truth. I learned that my father was not a protector. He was an optics manager. Lorna Hale entered my life a year later, not as a stepmother, but as my father's masterpiece. He was the CEO, and she was his new, flagship project in compassionate culture. He married his own case study. She was beautiful, articulate, and radiated an empathetic leadership that landed him on the cover of regional business magazines. Norcrest Dynamics wasn't just profitable, it was kind. The kindness, like the company's balance sheet, had its own creative accounting. At home, the performance was minimal. My 19th birthday, during a college break, I received no gift, just a yellow sticky note affixed to my bathroom mirror. Her looping, confident script, a familiar sting. "Grow up, no one is impressed." At the office, which I was forced to intern at every summer, her performance was flawless. A 6-foot-tall poster of her smiling face greeted you by the elevators. The tagline, which she had personally approved, read, "Kindness at work. It's in our DNA." I saw the DNA. I saw her belittle a cafeteria worker until she cried, then send a company-wide email an hour later about mindfulness in our daily interactions. I saw her compliment a female executive's dress in the boardroom, and then, in the elevator, murmur to my father, "She looks cheap. Is that the best talent we can find?" She taught me hypocrisy. My father taught me complicity. So, I found new teachers. While my peers were in bars, I was in a fluorescent-lit classroom at the city college, taking night classes, labor law, forensic accounting, corporate governance, while interning in Norcrest's internal audit department, a position my father arranged, thinking it would toughen me up. I wasn't just filing, I was reading. I wasn't just getting coffee, I was memorizing the bylaws. I learned every loophole, every retention policy, every dusty clause in the corporate charter that they had all forgotten. I watched, too, for 5 years. I watched HR lose files, any complaint that brushed too close to Lorna, any exit interview that mentioned a toxic C-suite environment, any whisper of her expense account. It all vanished. A junior analyst in marketing filed a formal harassment claim. 2 weeks later, her laptop was wiped, her email deactivated, and her complaint file corrupted during a server migration. The official auto-reply from the HR portal was always the same. This matter has been resolved. Resolved. The word is a corporate tombstone. It means we have successfully buried the body. Standing in that sterile Q&A light, I look out at the crowd. I don't see colleagues. I see a database of human frailty. I spent a decade studying them. I see Diane from legal, clutching her purse. She's terrified of losing her health insurance. Her son has a pre-existing condition. She will look away. She will always look away. I see Marcus from sales, already texting, probably to his VP. He's ambitious. He sees Lorna as a kingmaker. He will lie for her. He will see the slap and call it a high five. I see the IT technicians in the back, the ones who work on contracts, the ones with no benefits and no job security. They look at the floor. They are the ones who have seen the deleted emails. They are the ones who know where the bodies are buried, but they won't talk, not unless they are compelled, not unless they are given no other choice. I learned to distinguish between fear and ambition. I learned who would break under oath and who would perjure themselves for a bonus. They all thought I was just Graham's quiet daughter, the one with no drive, the one who pathetically clung to the family business. When I applied for a job in compliance, they were relieved. It was a dead-end department, a glorified records office. I accepted the lowest possible position, compliance analyst I. They thought it was a surrender. It was the key. From that gray cubicle in the basement, I had a badge. I had a reason to be in the records room. I had a reason to pull audit logs. And on my own time, with my own money, I began to build. I opened a cloud account on an external, encrypted server, one that never touched the Norcrest intranet. I called it the Vault. Lorna is whispering furiously to my father now. His face is pale, the mask of the calm. Celebratory CEO is gone. He sees the red light on the camera. He sees the blood on my face. He sees the defiance. He thinks this is an accident. He thinks this is a tantrum. He thinks this is his daughter finally, publicly, ruining the evening. He is wrong. This is not a moment of passion. This is the final item on a checklist. This is the destination. This is the precise, calculated endpoint of a straight line I began drawing with a shaking hand on my 12th birthday, the moment I heard him strike a match and choose the cake over his child. Tonight is not an explosion, it is a detonation, and my hand is on the plunger. The red recording light on my phone is a single, unblinking eye. It reflects in the wide, terrified pupils of the people in the front row. They are waiting for a breakdown, for tears, for an accusation. They are expecting a family drama. I am about to give them a corporate audit. They don't know that my mind is not in this room. It is in a cold, logical space, a digital fortress of my own design, firewalled from Norcrest servers, encrypted with a 256-bit key that exists only in my memory. The Vault. For 10 years, every bruise they left, every lie they told, every dollar they stole was not an injury, it was data. And I am a very, very good analyst. Inside the Vault, everything is indexed. The first folder is labeled Medical. It contains 27 files. Each is a scanned copy of a visit summary from an urgent care clinic or an emergency room, paid for in cash. Each report is time-stamped, cross-referenced with a specific Norcrest Dynamics corporate event. There's the file from the day after the 2018 holiday gala, ICD-10 code S00512A, contusion of left eyelid and periocular area, initial encounter. Attached to the PDF is a high-resolution photograph, taken in the neutral light of my bathroom, showing the spiderweb of capillaries that had broken beneath my skin. There's another from the morning of the 2021 charity golf tournament, ICD-10 code S1083XA, contusion of other specified part of neck, initial encounter. That file is paired with an event photo from the Grayford Business Journal, showing me in a Norcrest polo shirt, a silk scarf tied jauntily around my neck in the 90-degree heat, 27 files, 27 documented injuries, 27 times they thought I'd forget. The next folder is surveillance. It holds 14 video clips, not from inside the building. Lorna was too smart for that. These are from public cameras. The traffic cam at the intersection of 6th and Monmouth, the ATM camera at the bank across the street, the wide-angle security feed from the parking garage entrance. I had filed dozens of public records requests over the years, obtaining footage from specific dates and times, alone. The clips show nothing, but when synchronized with Norcrest's own keycard access logs, which I, as a compliance analyst, had legitimate reason to audit, they form a narrative. Here is Lorna's car, a black Mercedes, pulling into the garage at 7:02 p.m. for a team-building dinner. Here is the keycard log showing I entered the building at 7:05 p.m., and here is the traffic cam footage from an hour later, time-stamped 8:17 p.m., showing me walking quickly away from the building, my head down, one hand held to my jaw. It's circumstantial. But 14 coincidences stop being coincidences. They become a pattern. Then, there is the folder marked HR Recovered. This is my prize. The Norcrest IT department, under Lorna's directive, was sloppy. They deleted files, but they never properly configured the litigation hold settings on the email exchange server. They forgot about the federally mandated 5-year retention policy for all corporate communications. Using standard e-discovery tools during a routine audit, I was able to access the server's recovery cache, and there they were. Hundreds of emails the HR department had lost, the complaint from the junior marketing analyst, the exit interview notes from the CFO who left abruptly, all of them, with digital threads leading back to Lorna. My favorite is a chain where a mid-level manager raises concerns about Lorna's verbal abuse. The HR business partner forwards it to the head of HR. The head of HR forwards it to Lorna. Lorna's reply, sent from her phone, is a single sentence, "Make this go away." An hour later, the HR head replies, "Resolved." The next folder, expenses, is less violent but just as damning. Lorna loved the company credit card. She was a pioneer of creative accounting. For 3 years running, she expensed a week-long stay at a 5-star spa resort in Arizona. The line item wasn't spa, it was Executive Team Resilience Offsite. The attendees listed were her and 2 of her hand-picked VPs. The receipts, however, told the real story. I found the detailed folios, not charges for conference rooms or strategy sessions, but for hot stone massages, seaweed wraps, and private poolside cabanas. She was stealing from the company in plain sight, disguising it with the very wellness jargon she championed in her company-wide emails. Then, access logs. As Chief People Officer, Lorna had administrative privileges, but she wanted more. The system logs, which I pulled quarterly, showed that 4 years ago, at 2:13 a.m. on a Sunday, her user credentials were used to create a new access role, CHRO admin. It was a ghost profile. It had all the permissions of a chief human resources officer, but also the full back-end access of a system administrator. It could create, modify, and delete any employee file, any compensation record, any performance review, without leaving a standard audit trail. She had built herself a digital skeleton key. The logs show this role was used exactly 17 times, each time within 24 hours of a formal complaint being filed against her. And then, the folder that hurts the most. Graham. It contains only one file, a scanned image of a handwritten note. It's on his personal CEO letterhead. I found it in a shred bin 3 years ago, incompetently discarded. His familiar, decisive handwriting is unmistakable. It was a note to the then head of legal, concerning a formal complaint I had tried to file through an external lawyer. It says, "This is a family matter. Handle optics. Do not escalate." It's not just a cover-up. It's a command. It's the moment my father, the CEO, made a conscious decision to protect the brand over his own child. It is the company's entire philosophy distilled into 8 words. But evidence is only one half of power. The other half is leverage. The folder is labeled ESOP, Employee Stock Ownership Plan, Norcrest. Like many private companies, has one. Most of the shares are non-voting. They're a retirement benefit, something employees rarely think about. But I thought about it. I read the plan document, 100 pages of dense legalese, until I knew it better than the lawyers who wrote it. I found a clause allowing employees to assign a proxy to vote their shares in extraordinary circumstances, including a material breach of fiduciary duty by an officer of the company. Over the past 5 years, as the quiet girl from compliance, I listened. People confided in me. They complained about Lorna, about the culture, about feeling powerless, and to a select few, the ones who were leaving, the ones who had nothing to lose, I made a quiet offer. Let me be your voice, I'd say. Assign me your proxy. It's symbolic, but it's a record that you objected. They signed. They thought it was a small act of defiance. They had no idea they were giving me ammunition. Tonight, I hold the voting proxies for 6% of the company's total shares. The final file in the vault is the trigger. It's a contract, a fully executed, legally binding agreement with Massey and Finch, one of the most ruthless and respected independent forensic accounting firms in the country. I paid the retainer myself, with the inheritance my mother left me. The contract is sealed. Its terms state that they are to be given full, immediate access to Norcrest's financials and electronic records upon receipt of a single trigger phrase from me, delivered via their secure portal. Commence audit. The contract is my declaration of war. It proves that this isn't a personal grievance aired in a moment of anger. It is the first, official move in a full-scale corporate takeover. Lorna is now walking towards the stage, her face thunderous. My father is gesturing wildly to the AV team at the back of the room, mouthing, "Cut the feed." But they can't, because I am not just Rhea Vale, his daughter. I am the acting head of compliance. I am the proxy for 6% of his company. And the vault is open. This is not chaos. This is architecture. My father is still gesturing to the AV booth at the back of the hall, his face a mask of purple fury. He's jabbing his finger at the tech, mouthing the words, "Cut the feed, kill it." I can see the technician, Brian, a junior guy who still fears my father, hammering at his keyboard. He hits the enter key with frantic force. Nothing happens. The live icon on the monitors, broadcasting my bleeding face to the entire company intranet, remains a steady, insolent red. Brian can't cut the feed. He is Team A. He is here to operate the cameras and play the Q3 wins slideshow. He is a prop. Team B has the kill switch, and Team B isn't in this building. This town hall, this employee appreciation party, is being co-hosted and simulcast by an external vendor. That was the line item I buried in the Q3 compliance budget. The master service agreement I signed last week was with a firm called Third Eye Event Solutions. They are, in reality, a digital security and forensics firm that specializes in hostile takeovers. Right now, a technician from Third Eye is sitting in a secured off-site location, routing this entire feed through their own encrypted server before it ever touches the Norcrest intranet. Brian is typing commands into a dead terminal. The only person who can cut this feed is me. Lorna knows this, not the specifics, but she can feel the loss of control like a change in cabin pressure. Her fury is calcifying into something colder. Panic. "Graham!" she shrieks, forgetting the hot mics, forgetting the entire room. This was never a party. It was a mandatory training. When I scheduled this event 3 months ago, I didn't book the Skyview Hall. I booked the Q3 Mandatory Ethics Town Hall. The employee appreciation and birthday elements were a synergistic addition from Lorna's office. She couldn't resist. The chance to perform her dual roles, the benevolent chief people officer and the loving stepmother, was irresistible. She saw a stage. I built her a cage. I built it using the one thing they never bothered to read, the bylaws. 2 months ago, I presented the Q3 compliance update to the board of directors. It was, by design, excruciatingly boring. I walk them through 45 minutes of regulatory minutia and data privacy updates. Tucked into slide 38 of 52 under the heading Bylaw Revisions for SEC Transparency Guidelines was subsection 7.3. I drafted it myself. Whistleblower Safe Harbor in Live Forums. It's a dense, beautiful piece of corporate legalese. Its function is brutally simple. It states that any company-wide forum designated as an ethics and compliance event cannot be interrupted, censored, terminated, or paused by any officer of the corporation, including the CEO, once a bona fide whistleblower claim has been initiated in that forum. The broadcast, it stipulates, must continue unabridged until the claim is formally and publicly recorded. It's just a formality. I had explained to the bored-looking board. It's optics. It shows the SEC were serious about transparency. My father, checking his watch, had waved his hand. Fine, Rhea, whatever you need for the file. They approved it unanimously. They didn't just hand me the gun. They signed the permit and paid for the ammunition. Now, Lorna is trying to rush the stage. She's decided on physical force. She will take the microphone. She will end this. "You're hysterical," she screams, her voice cracking. "Security! Get her off the stage!" Two men in dark, conservative suits step from the shadow of a structural pillar, intercepting her. They are not Norcrest security. They are taller, calmer. They don't touch her. They simply occupy the space she intends to take. "Ma'am," the first man says, his voice flat, polite, and completely immovable. "We're going to have to ask you to remain off the stage." Lorna spins on him. "Who the hell are you?" She looks past them to the two uniformed Norcrest guards by the elevators. "Do your jobs. Remove her." The Norcrest guards don't move. They look at each other. They look at their feet. They are frozen because of the email they received from my office an hour before the event. CC'd. Head of Legal. Subject: Security Protocol for Town Hall. Policy 7.3 active. The memo was clear. As this is a designated safe harbor event, security personnel are to be observe and report only. Any physical intervention or forcible removal of any employee must be directly authorized by independent legal counsel. "And who," Lorna snarls, her voice dropping to a venomous hiss, "is independent counsel?" The second man in the suit taps his earpiece. "Counsel is patched in now. Ms. Hale." On the giant monitors, the feed of my face splits. A new window appears. A picture-in-picture feed showing a sterile, wood-paneled conference room. 3 people, 2 men, 1 woman, sit at a long table, looking directly into a webcam. On the official event schedule, they were listed as AV Vendor Demo, Legal Compliance. They are, in fact, the external legal team from Massey and Finch. The lead lawyer, the woman, leans forward. Her voice is amplified, cutting through the silence of the hall. "Ms. Hale, this is legal counsel. We are monitoring the live feed. We advise you to return to your seat. Any attempt to physically interfere with Ms. Vale will be considered a direct violation of Company Bylaw 7.3 and several state-level whistleblower protection statutes." Checkmate. Lorna stops. The color drains from her face. She has run, full speed, into the first wall. My father sees the next wall. He's not looking at me. He's scanning the crowd. He's looking for allies. He's looking for the board members. But I'm looking at my guests. Near the back, standing by the untouched sheet cake, are 2 people, a man and a woman, both in professional attire, both sipping club sodas. They are not employees. They are watching this scene not with horror, but with a sharp, professional intensity. The woman is holding her phone, angled down, but clearly recording. They are the culture journalists I invited for an exclusive tour of Norcrest's award-winning corporate environment. They are, in fact, the 2 lead investigative reporters for the Grayford City Herald. The trap is set. The feed is locked. The lawyers are active. The press is in the room. But the final, most important lock has already turned. The moment I spoke the word documentation, my phone did more than start a recording. It executed a script. As head of compliance, I have been coordinating with internal audit for a month to build a secure data room for our upcoming external audit. It's a standard, read-only portal. When my legal recording app recognized the audio signature of my trigger word, it sent an encrypted packet to the Norcrest server. The script executed, an email, pre-drafted and sitting in a server-side queue, was instantly released. Right now, as Lorna stands frozen in the aisle, that email is appearing in the inboxes of every member of the board of directors, every major institutional shareholder, and the legal team at Massey & Finch. The email contains a single, non-transferable link. The link is to the data room. The link is to the vault. As I stand here, they are opening it. They are seeing the 27 medical reports. They are seeing the e-discovery files of the resolved HR complaints. They are seeing the itemized receipts for the Team Resilience spa treatments. They are seeing the access logs for the CHRO admin ghost profile. They are seeing my father's handwritten note. Handle optics. Do not escalate. And one last thing, one last piece of armor. This isn't just an internal ethics complaint. At 8:01 a.m. this morning, the State Attorney General's office received a 400-page, time-stamped whistleblower complaint. It details the expense fraud, the HR violations, and the pattern of corporate-sponsored harassment. It was filed by a Jane Doe, an anonymous Norcrest employee. That filing, under state law, grants me absolute, ironclad legal protection from retaliation. They cannot fire me. They cannot sue me. They cannot touch me. I am untouchable. My father and my stepmother are trapped on a live feed, in a room full of witnesses, with their entire corporate history being downloaded by their shareholders. The stage is set. The doors are locked. The training is over. My father and Lorna think power is a corner office on the 28th floor. They think it's a title on a business card, the authority to approve a budget, the ability to fire someone with a single email. They have spent their lives accumulating the trappings of power, believing them to be the thing itself. They are wrong. In a corporation, true power is not a crown. It is a lever. It is the quiet, mathematical, and legally binding reality of ownership. For the past decade, while they were busy building their personal brands, I was busy acquiring the only thing that actually matters: control. They just didn't see it, because it didn't come with a press release. It started with my grandfather, the man who actually built this company from nothing. He was a quiet, observant man who loved engineering and distrusted charisma. He saw the rot in his own son long before it was visible to the public. When he died, he left his personal block of Norcrest Dynamics stock, 9% of the company, in a meticulously structured trust. The terms were simple. The shares would be managed by a bank until I, his only grandchild, reached the age of 32. At that point, full voting and dispositive control would transfer to me. My 32nd birthday was last week. The transfer of control was a quiet electronic transaction, a few lines of code executed in a bank's mainframe, unnoticed by anyone at Norcrest. Graham and Lorna were too busy planning this party, too focused on the optics of celebrating my birthday, to notice that I had just become the third largest single shareholder in the company. That 9% is the foundation. It's the bedrock. On top of it, I layered the 6% from the employee stock ownership plan, the proxies, the small forgotten shares of disillusioned employees who thought they were making a symbolic gesture. They weren't. They were building a fortress. So tonight, as I stand at this podium, I am not just Rhea Vale, the acting head of compliance. I am the silent, undisputed controller of a 15% voting block of this company. In the world of corporate governance, 15% doesn't give you the throne, but it gives you the power to start a war. It's enough to formally demand a special meeting of the shareholders. It's enough to force a vote of no confidence. It's enough to make the big players, the institutional investors, the pension funds, the private equity firms, sit up and listen. You just need one of them to stand with you. My ally is not in this room. They are watching this feed from their office in a steel and glass tower in New York. They are called Longwater Capital, a notoriously unsentimental private equity fund that owns a 12% stake in Norcrest. I approached them 6 months ago, not as Rhea Vale, the CEO's daughter, but as the head of compliance, with an anonymous, encrypted data packet. I didn't appeal to their sense of justice. I appealed to their bottom line. Longwater Capital doesn't care about Lorna Hale's management style. They care about her effect on the P&L statement. They have been quietly furious for 2 years about Norcrest's ballooning SG&A expenses, the ever-expanding people and culture budget that produced no discernible return on investment. I showed them, in excruciating detail, where the money was going. The resilience offsites, that were spa vacations. The 6-figure contracts for engagement consultants, who happened to be Lorna's distant cousins. The bloated benefits packages for her executive clique. I showed them a chief people officer who treated the company's treasury as her personal slush fund. I showed them waste. I showed them fraud. Their response was cold, swift, and exactly what I predicted. They would not act on anonymous data alone, but they made a promise, a legally binding one. If I could provide public, undeniable, and material proof of C-suite malfeasance, an event so significant it would trigger an SEC filing, they would vote their entire 12% block with me. They would support an immediate motion to remove the responsible parties and initiate a full, independent audit. That promise is in a sealed manila envelope on the corner of the podium. Next to my phone, it's a formal letter of intent, signed by their managing partner. I am the only one who knows what's inside. It is to be opened only when this live stream crosses a specific legal threshold, the point of material misrepresentation to shareholders, a point we are rapidly approaching. My 15%, their 12%, together. We have 27%. It's not a majority, but it's a tidal wave. It's more than enough to win the vote I am about to call. The final pieces of the architecture are the people. I didn't just design the stage, I placed the actors. Sitting at a small table near the front, looking pale and deeply uncomfortable, is Alan Carmichael. He is the interim CFO. He's a 64-year-old career accountant, a man who lives by the spreadsheet and believes in balanced books. He is 3 months from retirement, for the last year. I know for a fact that Lorna has been bullying him into signing off on her creative expense reports. Alan is not a coward, but he is tired. He just wants to get to his pension without a fight. I made sure his table was directly next to a live floor microphone, ostensibly placed there for the Q&A session. Alan is a man on the edge. All he needs is a push. All he needs is to be asked a direct question on a live broadcast, a question he cannot evade without perjuring himself. But how do you call a shareholder vote in the middle of a birthday party? How do you bypass the weeks of notices, the proxy statements, the formal calling of a board meeting? You use their own rules against them. You use the lever they forgot they even had. It's buried deep in the corporate charter, a relic from my grandfather's era. Bylaw 4.9, special meeting on the floor. The clause was designed for emergencies, a sudden market crash, the unexpected death of a CEO. It allows for an immediate, binding shareholder vote to be held without prior notice, provided one condition is met: that a quorum representing a simple majority of the company's voting shares are present and accounted for, either in person or by a duly authorized electronic proxy. My father and his board, in their arrogance, have always held their shareholder meetings as tightly controlled, scripted affairs. They never imagined Bylaw 4.9 could be used against them. They never imagined someone could assemble a majority of shares, in secret, and spring a vote in the middle of a corporate town hall. I have 15%, Longwater Capital, watching this feed, is my electronic proxy for 12%. That's 27%. The other institutional investors, whose phones are now buzzing with the link to the vault, hold another 30%. They may not have known this was coming, but they are now present and accounted for. They are watching, they are my audience, and they are my jury. That is the lever. It has nothing to do with the board of directors, sitting in their homes, watching this on their iPads in horror. Their power, right now, is irrelevant. The boardroom is an abstraction. This room, this glass box, 28 floors in the sky, is now the legal, binding, and absolute center of power for Norcrest Dynamics, and the only person who controls the agenda is me. I let the silence stretch. I let the legal team's warning hang in the air. A chemical agent that paralyzed the room. Lorna is frozen, trapped between the stage and her seat, a statue of impotent rage. My father's face is sheet white. He is no longer a CEO. He is a man watching a bomb he didn't know existed. Counting down. I turn back to the podium. My phone's red light is my anchor. I tap the screen, switching from the recording app to the presentation file linked to the main monitors. We will now begin the formal agenda of the Mandatory Ethics Town Hall. I state, my voice is clear, devoid of emotion. It is the voice I use to conduct compliance audits. Item 1. Employee safety and workplace violence. On the monitors, the split screen of the external legal team vanishes. It is replaced by the live camera feed pointed at me. But the third eye technician, following my preset instructions, doesn't use the wide shot. The camera zooms. It pushes past my shoulders, past my chin, until my face fills the two 20-foot screens flanking the stage. There is a collective, audible gasp in the room. There is no hiding it now. The Q&A floodlights are surgical. The cut beneath my eye, still oozing a thin line of blood, is no longer a private injury. It is a corporate liability, magnified 100 times. It is a crimson line item on a public ledger. The concealer, caked and cracked from the impact, only highlights the older, greener bruise beneath. The blood glistens. This, I say, and I touch my finger to the blood, then hold it up for the camera, is Exhibit A, an unprovoked physical assault by a C-suite officer, our Chief People Officer, Lorna Hale, witnessed by over 200 employees, on a live feed. "That is a lie," Lorna screams. "She's unstable, she fell." Documentation, I continue, ignoring her, requires a pattern. I tap the screen again. The massive image of my face is replaced by a video file. The quality is grainy. The angle low. It's from a hidden micro camera I'd planted in the 26th floor pantry. The timestamp in the corner reads, October 15th, 4:32 p.m. Last week, I narrate, as the room watches the silent video. The company-wide women's mentorship mixer was in progress in the main hall. Lorna Hale requested I meet her in the pantry for a private check-in. The video shows me standing by the coffee machine. Lorna enters. She is smiling. She walks close, says something I cannot hear. I shake my head. And just like tonight, her hand, fast as a snake, strikes, an open-palmed slap that cracks across my face and snaps my head to the side. The video shows her leaning in, her face contorted, spitting words at me. Then she straightens her blazer, smooths her hair, and exits the pantry, ready to return to the mixer. The clip ends, the screen goes black. "This is not a family matter," I say to the dead silent room. "This is a systemic pattern of assault and battery, enabled by a culture of silence that starts at the top." I click to the next slide. The screen fills with spreadsheets. Item 2, material misrepresentation and fraud. This is for the shareholders. This is for the board members, who are at this very second staring at the vault. On screen, you see the last 3 years of Executive Team Resilience Offsite expenses, approved by our CPO. You will note they are invoices from the Miraval, Arizona Resort and Spa. You will note the itemized charges for advanced hot stone therapy, AquaZen bodywork, and private cabana rentals, over $150,000 in personal services, submitted and approved as a necessary business expense. I click again. On screen, a consulting contract for $1.2 million, paid to Hale Engagement Solutions for Cultural Transformation Advisory, a firm registered to a PTO box in rural Delaware, a firm whose principal is a direct relative of Lorna Hale, a project for which no work product, no reports, and no metrics have ever been delivered to this company. I click again. On screen, the server logs for the CHRO admin ghost profile. Note the timestamps. February 8th. A complaint is filed against Ms. Hale by a junior analyst. February 9th, 2:14 a.m. The CHRO admin profile logs in. February 9th, 2:16 a.m. The complainant's entire HR file, including their original complaint, is permanently deleted. My father finally finds his voice. It is a roar. End the stream, Brian, now! That is a direct order! In the back of the room, the AV technician, Brian, panics. He is a 24-year-old kid. His CEO has just given him a direct command. He turns to his console and his fingers fly, typing the master kill command. He hits enter. On the giant monitors, a new banner flashes over the spreadsheets, written in stark, red, sans serif font. It says, Broadcast lockout in effect. Corporate bylaw 7.3. Safe harbor is active. All commands disabled. Third Eye Event Solutions. Brian's face, visible in the glow of his monitor, is a picture of pure terror. He has been locked out of his own system. The feed holds. As I stated, I say, my voice cutting over my father's heavy, ragged breathing. This is a secure forum. Your authority, Mr. Vale, is not recognized here. I turn my gaze to the board members I know are watching. This should not be a surprise to the board of directors. I reach into my blazer pocket and pull out a folded piece of paper, a certified letter. 14 days ago, as required by my fiduciary duty, I sent a formal warning to every member of the board via certified mail. I will read the first paragraph. I unfold it. This letter serves as formal notice of a pattern of material financial irregularities, ethical violations, and physical threats originating from the office of the CPO, Lorna Hale. I have evidence of, I pause, systemic fraud and a pattern of behavior that puts the company at profound legal and financial risk. I am formally requesting an emergency board session to present my findings. I look up, directly into the camera. I received one response, from our lead director. He assured me he had spoken to Graham, and that this family drama would be handled internally. It was not. It was ignored. Your negligence is now recorded. I turn my attention to the front table, to Alan Carmichael, the interim CFO. Mr. Carmichael. He jumps as if tasered. His glasses are fogged. Mr. Carmichael, you are the interim chief financial officer of this company. You are bound by Sarbanes-Oxley. You are on a live, recorded feed. I ask you one simple, direct question. These spa expenses, these consulting fees, were you aware of them? Alan is shaking. He looks at my father, who is staring at him, his eyes screaming no. He looks at me, at the blood on my face, at the spreadsheets on the screen. He looks at the hot microphone in front of him. His entire life, his career, his pension, is in this one moment. He pulls the microphone closer. He coughs, a dry, racking sound. His voice is a rasp. He clears his throat. Yes, I was aware. And did you approve them, Mr. Carmichael? I press. I was instructed to. By whom? By the CEO's office, to align with the CPO's budget. And did you, at any time, believe these expenses constituted a risk to the company? A risk to us, the shareholders? This is it, the legal trigger, the materiality clause. Alan Carmichael looks at the spreadsheet. He looks at my father. And then he seems to find a final, tiny spark of integrity. He sits up, just a fraction. In my official capacity, I flagged them. In my last quarterly review, I noted them as a potential material risk to investors. Yes. The admission hangs in the air, a bell that cannot be unrung. Thank you, Mr. Carmichael, I say softly. You are dismissed. He has just saved himself from a federal indictment, and he has just given me the win. A confirmed material risk, stated by our own CFO, I announced to the room. This brings us to item 3. I reach for the manila envelope on the podium, the one marked Longwater Capital. I rip the seal. The sound is shockingly loud in the silent room. I pull out the single sheet of paper. This is a letter of intent from Longwater Capital, the holders of 12% of this company's stock. I read from it directly. Upon public confirmation of material misrepresentation or financial malfeasance by a C-suite officer, Longwater Capital will immediately exercise its full voting rights to support. I pause, letting the words land. 1. An immediate, binding floor vote to remove the Chief People Officer, Lorna Hale, for cause, and 2. A motion to place the Chief Executive Officer, Graham Vale, on administrative leave, pending a full independent, forensic investigation. A wave of shock rolls through the room. People are standing up. The reporters are furiously typing. Lorna looks at Graham. Her face is no longer angry. It is the color of ash. I place the letter on the podium. The room is utterly, completely silent. No one is looking at Lorna. No one is looking at Graham. They are all looking at me. Across the room, on the catering table, the abandoned birthday cake sits under the harsh lights. The happy birthday Rhea is a smear of blue and white. The candles, forgotten, have burned all the way down. Thin tendrils of smoke rise from where the flames died, and the colored wax has melted into grotesque, pooling rivers, hardening on the frosting, a perfect timeline of the evening's events. The silence from the Longwater letter is a vacuum. It holds for 3, 4, 5 seconds. Then Lorna shatters it. It's not a voice, it's a physical force, a shriek of such primal, cornered rage that people in the front row physically recoil. Defamation! She lunges, not at me, but at the nearest live microphone, the one the terrified, sweating CFO, Alan Carmichael, just used. She shoves him, a full-body assault, sending the older man stumbling backward into a catering tray. She grabs the mic stand, her knuckles white. This is a setup, slander. I will sue this entire company. I will. She doesn't get to finish. The 2 dark-suited men, my external security, my real security, move. They don't touch her. They don't have to. They are human walls. They move with a calm, decisive economy of motion, placing themselves between her and the podium, boxing her in. Ma'am, the first one says, his voice flat, dead, immovable. We need you to step away from the stage. Get your hands off me. I am the Chief People Officer. I will have your jobs. On the giant monitors, the feed of my face is instantly replaced by the woman from the external law firm. She is standing now, her face a mask of cold, judicial fury. Ms. Hale, her voice booms through the hall, amplified, distorted, godlike. This is independent counsel. You are being warned. As of 8:01 a.m. this morning, Ms. Vale is a state-protected whistleblower. We have a standing temporary protection order, filed in Grayford County Court, barring you from approaching, contacting, or threatening her. You are in direct violation of that court order. Step away now. The word whistleblower lands like a stun grenade. It changes the narrative from a family squabble to a federal case. Lorna freezes. Her mouth opens, but nothing comes out. My father, seeing his wife legally neutered, understands this is his last stand. He must pull the final lever of power. He draws himself up, his face purple with rage, and unleashes the voice he uses to close billion-dollar deals. Enough! The single word is a shockwave. This is not a hearing. This is a corporate mutiny. As CEO of this company and chairman of the board, I am issuing a directive. This entire spectacle poses a catastrophic brand risk to Norcrest Dynamics. It is a breach of all confidentiality. I am ordering this feed terminated, this room cleared, and Ms. Vale placed on immediate administrative leave for inciting this panic. It's his trump card, brand risk, the ultimate corporate bogeyman, the phrase that ends all arguments. He is betting that the fear of a stock plunge is more powerful than my evidence. He is commanding his employees to obey the hierarchy. He looks at me, his eyes burning with a lifetime of dominance. Checkmate. I let his order hang in the air. I watched the faces in the crowd, the VPs, the senior managers, their bodies tensing, caught between two opposing centers of gravity. I turn back to the podium. I do not raise my voice. I do not need to. The CEO is concerned about risk, I say, my voice cutting cleanly through his echo. He is right to be, but the risk is not this feed. The risk is the truth. Shareholders have a right to assess that risk for themselves. I tap my phone. I execute the next script. As of 30 seconds ago, I announce, the link to the secure data room, previously available only to the board, has been released to all major institutional shareholders and to our registered guests. A collective ping and buzz fills the room. It is the sound of 100 smartphones receiving a single notification. The investors, the analysts, and most importantly, the two investigative reporters in the back of the room. They look down at their phones. Their eyes go wide. I watch the face of the lead reporter. I can see her scrolling, swiping. She sees the medical reports. She sees the spa receipts. She sees my father's handwritten note. Handle optics, do not escalate. My father's authority, his CEO directive, just evaporated. It was an illusion. The data is real. The silence is broken again. This time, it's not from the stage. It's from the audience. A woman is standing up near the middle of the room. It's Sarah, from the junior marketing team, the same analyst whose harassment complaint had been resolved into oblivion. She is trembling, her face pale, but she is standing. She's telling the truth, Sarah says, her voice shaking but finding a thread of steel. I have an email. Lorna snaps her head toward her, a rabid animal. You are fired. You can't fire her, I say, my voice blank. She is a named party in the whistleblower complaint. She is protected. Please, Sarah, go on. Sarah looks at me, a flash of pure, terrified courage in her eyes. She holds her phone up. It's the email I sent to HR about Ms. Hale. And here is the resolved email I got back. But the email header, the metadata, it shows it wasn't from HR. It was sent by Lorna Hale, using the HR general inbox. A low, horrified murmur sweeps the room. The illusion of the kindness culture is shredding in real time. The reporters in the back smell the blood. The female journalist doesn't even raise her hand. Her voice is sharp, trained to cut through chaos. A question for the CEO or CPO, she calls out, her phone held up, clearly recording. The data room mentions a $1.2 million consulting fee for culture transformation. Can you confirm this fee was paid to Hale Engagement Solutions, a firm registered to a PEO box, and whose principal is a known family member of Ms. Hale's? Can you provide the deliverable for that $1.2 million contract? My father stares, speechless. He can't answer. To confirm is to admit fraud. To deny is to lie to the press on a live feed, with the evidence already in their hands. I can answer that, I say, tapping to the next slide. The screen fills with a new document, a timesheet. There was no deliverable because there were no consultants. What you see here are the internal timesheets for those engagement consultants. They were required to have Norcrest badges for internal access. I pulled their logs. They were not consultants. They were relatives. And their work? They were signing in, using their access cards to go to the executive gym, and then signing out 8 hours later. Lorna Hale was not just paying her family for no-show jobs. She was using company funds to pay for their health club memberships. This, for some reason, is what breaks the dam. The spa trips were abstract. The $1.2 million was a number. But paying for your cousins to use the company gym? It's a level of petty, arrogant theft that every employee in the room understands. It's a personal insult. My father is defeated. He knows it. He looks pale, shrunken. But Lorna is still fighting. Her mind is racing, looking for an exit, a loophole. This is a setup, she sputters, her voice thin. You have no authority. This is just data. It's not a conclusion. Only the board can... They don't have to, I interrupt. The conclusion has already been reached. I tap to the final slide in this sequence. It's the logo for Massey and Finch, the independent auditors. This is the preliminary report from the independent auditors, to whom I provided the vault's contents 2 weeks ago, as acting head of compliance. This was within my authority. I read the summary, my voice ringing out in the dead silent hall. The initial findings show a consistent multi-year pattern of material financial misdirection, breach of fiduciary duty, and willful misrepresentation of corporate assets. Their preliminary conclusion states that these actions unambiguously meet the criteria for cause termination, as defined in the C-suite employment contracts. I lower the paper and look directly at Lorna. Her hands are shaking. And as you know, Lorna, I say, my voice dropping, you wrote those contracts. For cause termination triggers the clawback. The word hits her harder than the slap. The clawback, the one she put in every executive contract, including her own, to show shareholders she was tough on performance. It means she doesn't just get fired. It means the company can legally reclaim her bonuses, her stock options, and her salary from every year the fraud was taking place. It means she doesn't just lose her job, she loses everything. Lorna Hale seems to deflate. The fight goes out of her. The adrenaline vanishes, leaving a hollow, sagging shell. She stumbles backward, away from the guards, away from the stage. Her eyes are glassy, unfocused. She puts a hand out to steady herself, grabbing the edge of the catering cart. Her hand, the one with the diamond rings that cut my face, lands directly in the center of the ruined birthday cake. She pulls it back, but it's too late. Her hand is coated in a thick, grotesque glove of blue frosting and melted wax. She stares at it. This mess, this undignified, ridiculous, colorful mess. The chief people officer, the queen of optics and brand, stands in the center of the room under a surgical spotlight, her hand dripping with buttercream. It's absurd, it's pathetic, and it's the perfect image for her downfall. She tries to wipe it on her expensive blazer, but she only succeeds in smearing it, a childish stain across the dark wool. She looks at my father, her eyes empty, begging for help. But he is not looking at her. He is looking at me. And for the first time in my life, his eyes are not filled with anger or disappointment or indifference. They are filled with fear. The chaos has been crushed. The counters have been anticipated. The board is silent. The shareholders are watching. The next move is mine. This room is no longer a party. It is a courtroom. It is an emergency shareholder meeting, convened by force of law. Lorna is a ghost, her hand dripping frosting, her eyes vacant. My father is a statue, his fear radiating off him in cold waves. The employees, the shareholders, are silent, waiting. They have seen the evidence. They have heard the testimony. Now, they await the verdict. I turn back to the podium. The red light on my phone is steady. The camera is unblinking. We will now proceed to the final item on the agenda, I announce. My voice is not my own. It is the voice of the bylaws, a cold, procedural instrument, a binding corporate action. I look out at the room, at the reporters, at the feet of the lawyers, at my father. Per the Norcrest Dynamics Corporate Charter, Bylaw 4.9, subsection A, I quote, "A special meeting on the floor may be called without prior notice in the event of a material crisis, provided a quorum of shareholders representing no less than 51% of voting shares are present, either in person or by verifiable electronic proxy." I pause, letting the ancient forgotten rule settle over them. The confirmed testimony of our interim CFO, Mr. Carmichael, constitutes such a material crisis. The presence of myself, as proxy for 15% of shares, and of Longwater Capital, as proxy for 12% of shares, and the verifiable electronic attendance of our other institutional shareholders, who have been provided the data room, confirms our quorum. I am not asking, I am stating a legal fact. As the acting head of compliance and as a 15% shareholder, I hereby call this special floor vote to order. I look at the corporate secretary, a mousy, precise woman named Elena, who has been hovering near the legal team's audio feed, her face ashen. This is her legal duty, and she knows it. Ms. Rosales, I command, using her formal title, please prepare to record the vote. Elena nods, a short, jerky movement, and steps forward, a company-issued tablet in her trembling hands. I present 2 motions to the shareholders, I declare. Motion 1, the immediate termination for cause of the Chief People Officer, Lorna Hale, for gross misconduct, material fraud, and breach of fiduciary duty. Motion 2, the immediate administrative suspension of the Chief Executive Officer, Graham Vale, pending the results of a full, independent forensic audit to determine his complicity in these actions. My father's head snaps up. Suspension. The word is a blade. He thought I was only coming for her. He never imagined the blade would turn on him. We will vote on the motions sequentially, I say. All present shareholders, please have your identification cards ready. Ms. Rosales will record the tally. We will begin with the institutional proxies. I will cast my 15% block, representing the Vale Trust and the ESOP proxy, as aye on motion 1. On the screen, a graphic I prepared appears. Rhea Vale, proxy, 15%, aye. I now call on the representative for Longwater Capital. The split-screen feed of the lawyers changes. A new man appears, sharp, dressed in a severe suit, his background a New York high-rise office. This is David Chen, managing partner for Longwater Capital, he says, his voice crisp, devoid of any emotion. We have reviewed the preliminary data. We find it compelling. Longwater Capital casts its 12% stake as aye on motion 1. On the screen, the graphic updates. Longwater Capital, 12%, aye. Total, 27%. Thank you, Mr. Chen, I say. I now call on any other institutional proxies present electronically. The feed of the lawyer, the woman from Massey and Finch, lights up. We are authorized by the Board of Record for the Cal STRS Pension Fund, holding 8%, and Vanguard Asset Management, holding 11%. Both have reviewed the data room. Both vote aye on motion 1. Total, 46%. The room is suffocating. We are 5% away from removing her. And now, I say, turning to the room, the vote of the employee shareholders present. This is the moment the culture of silence either breaks or holds. These are the people who fear for their jobs, their mortgages, their insurance. Ms. Rosales, I say, please conduct the floor count. All employee shareholders in favor of motion 1, the termination of Lorna Hale for cause. Please raise your shareholder identification cards now. For a second, nothing. Just the sound of 200 people breathing. Then, one hand, in the back, an older man from engineering. Someone I've seen in the cafeteria for 20 years. His hand is shaking, but he holds his blue ID card high. Then another, a young woman in marketing. Then 5, then 10, then a wave. It's not a cheer, it's a silent, desperate, collective uprising. Hands are shooting into the air, cards held high. A sea of blue and white. They are looking at me. Their faces a mixture of terror and, for the first time, hope. The corporate secretary, Elena, is sweeping the room, her stylus flying across her tablet. Section A, 14, Section B, 22, Section C, 19. She finishes, her hand shaking so hard she can barely hold the tablet. She looks at the external lawyer on the screen, who nods. Verification. Elena turns, her voice cracking, but she speaks into the mic. The floor vote. The floor vote from present employees represents 12% of total company shares. The vote is unanimous. I. I look at the monitor. Total, 58%. The number hangs in the air. 58%. A clear, undeniable, and legally binding majority. Motion 1 passes, I declare. The words are like stone. Lorna Hale is terminated for cause, effective immediately. Lorna makes a sound, a small, wet, gasping sound, like a fish pulled from water. She sags, the buttercream on her hand forgotten. There is no time to celebrate. We proceed to motion 2, I say, my voice a hammer. The suspension of CEO Graham Vale, pending investigation. My 15% block votes aye. Longwater Capital's representative reappears. Longwater votes aye. The lawyer. Cal STRS votes aye. Vanguard. Vanguard abstains, pending further review. The number on the screen, 15% Rhea, plus 12% Longwater, plus 8% Cal STRS, 35%. This one is not a landslide. This is a fight. He is the CEO. He is the founder's son. He is the company. Ms. Rosales, I say. The floor vote. For motion 2, all in favor. Again, the silence. This is harder. This is not the hated CPO. This is the CEO. This is the man who signs the paychecks. This is my father. A beat, another beat. The hands go up. Fewer this time, not a wave, but a brave, determined forest. The older engineer, Sarah from marketing, the entire IT team in the back, Alan Carmichael, the CFO, his card held high, his face grim. Elena counts. She is sweating now. The tally coming slower. Section A, 9. Section B, 15. Section C, 12. She finishes. She does the math. She looks at me, her eyes wide with shock. The floor vote represents 17% of total company shares. The vote is aye. Total, 35% plus 17% equals 52%. It is done. By 2%. By a handful of brave employees who had finally had enough. Motion 2 passes, I state. Graham Vale is suspended from his duties as CEO and chairman, pending investigation, effective immediately. The external lawyer on the screen does not miss a beat. Her voice cuts in, formal, final. By the authority of this binding shareholder vote, we hereby confirm that the clawback provisions are activated for Ms. Hale. All unvested stock, options, and deferred bonuses are immediately frozen. A full freeze on Mr. Vale's executive compensation is also in effect. This is the kill shot. The head of my security detail, the man who had blocked Lorna, speaks quietly into his wrist. Across the room, the 2 uniformed Norcrest guards, the ones who had been frozen by my father's command, now stand up straight. They have new orders. They look at each other, nod, and begin to walk. They do not walk toward me. They do not walk toward my father. They walk toward Lorna. She watches them approach, her eyes as dead as the screen on a powered-off phone. Ms. Hale, the first guard says, his voice polite but firm. We've received a remote order. Your access credentials have been revoked. We need you to come with us. We will be escorting you from the building. They don't touch her. They simply stand, one on each side, waiting. She is no longer an executive. She is a security risk. She is a trespasser. She looks at my father. One last, desperate plea. Graham. But Graham Vale does not hear her. He is standing in the exact same spot he was 10 minutes ago. Frozen. His arm is still bent, his hand still gripping the silver cake knife. Under the harsh white Q&A lights, the polished metal of the blade is trembling. A fine, high-frequency vibration that travels up his arm and into the sleeve of his $5,000 bespoke suit. He is staring at the number on the screen. 52%. He is not a CEO. He is not a husband. He is not a father. He is just a man, holding a knife, who has just lost everything. I turn back to the podium. I look at the red light on my phone. I look at the corporate secretary, Elena, who is waiting, tablet in hand. I lean into the microphone, my voice, clear and steady, for the legal record, for the final, definitive stamp. This concludes the special meeting. All actions are effective immediately. The live feed on the main screens did not cut. It simply changed. The chaotic view of the stunned employees and the departing guards was replaced by the calm, static logo of Massey & Finch, the legal firm. Below it, in small white letters, Policy 7.3 Post-Action Debrief, commencing in Conference Room 4. The red tally light on the broadcast camera in the hall remained on. Mr. Vale, Ms. Vale, the disembodied voice of the external lawyer said, cutting through the hall's stunned silence. Please proceed to Conference Room 4. Immediately. It was not a request. It was a summons. I stepped down from the podium. The crowd parted. No one would meet my eye, but the energy in the air had changed. The fear had dissipated. The air was still, but it was the stillness of a pressure system that had finally broken. My father was still standing by the cake. The knife was no longer in his hand. It was on the table, beside the melting wax. His right cuff, where his hand had rested, was smeared with a small, greasy streak of blue frosting. He looked up as I approached. His face was a void. He looked 20 years older. Without a word, he turned and began to walk. I followed him, 2 steps behind. We walked past the silent VPs, past the wide-eyed junior associates, past the 2 investigative reporters, who were watching us with an intensity that burned. I could feel their phones recording our every step. Conference Room 4 was one of the small, glass-walled meeting rooms that lined the hall. The glass was frosted for an illusion of privacy, but you could still see the blurred, indistinct shapes of the people inside. It was a room for mid-level performance reviews, not for the dismantling of an empire. He entered, I followed. The door clicked shut, the sound unnervingly final. The room was sterile, a gray table, 6 chairs, a speakerphone, and a small, almost invisible microphone embedded in the acoustic tile of the ceiling. My father slumped into the chair at the head of the table, the one he always sat in, the one with his back to the door. He looked at his hands, resting on the polished gray laminate. The silence was absolute. It was not a pause. It was a chasm. I could hear the faint hum of the building's HVAC system. I could hear the sticky, wet sound of his breathing. He raised his head. His eyes were not angry. They were not sad. They were just empty, burned out. You just destroyed the family, Rhea. His voice was a rasp, a dry scrape, the voice of a man who had swallowed ashes. I stood across the table from him. I did not sit. I kept my spine straight. I kept my voice level. The blood on my cheek had dried to a stiff, dark crust. The family, I said, was destroyed a long time ago. He flinched, the smallest, tiniest tremor. I continued, just stop the live stream. He stared at me, his mind clearly struggling to process this new reality. He was a man trying to read a map in a language he had never seen. He fell back on the only script he knew, the language of transactions, of leverage, of price. What do you want? He whispered. Is that it? What is it? Money? You want the chair? He just trailed vaguely at the room, at the building around us, the CEO's chair, the throne. He thought this was a coup. He thought this was a simple, brutal replacement of one monarch with another. He thought I was him. This was the moment, the one that mattered more than the vote, the one that defined the entire purpose. No, I said. The word was flat, absolute. I don't want the chair. I already resigned as head of compliance, effective at the end of this debrief. That shocked him. His head snapped up. This was not in his playbook. Then, why? All this, why? I leaned forward, placing my palms flat on the cool gray table. I looked directly into his empty eyes, forcing him to see me, not his daughter, not his quiet, broken accessory, me. I want the next person after me to be safe. I let the words hang in the air. the next analyst, the next junior associate, the next human being who got in Lorna's way, the next child who thought their father would protect them. I let him absorb the entirety of his failure. It was not a failure of business. It was a failure of humanity. He said nothing. There was nothing to say. I reached into the leather portfolio I had carried to the podium. I pulled out a single sheet of paper and slid it across the table. "This," I said, "is your temporary resignation agreement, effective immediately." He looked at it, his eyes unfocused. Resignation. I was suspended. "The suspension is what the shareholders voted for," I explained, my voice cold as the glass. "This is what I am giving you. This is the narrative. You are stepping down, citing personal and family health reasons, to cooperate fully with the audit. It is a cleaner exit than the one you are legally entitled to." He laughed, a single, dry, horrifying sound. You give me?" "I do," I said. "Read paragraph 4. His eyes scanned the page, his finger tracing the words. He stopped. Paragraph 4. It was a clause I had legal draft this morning. It stipulated that as a condition of his voluntary resignation, the company's current healthcare and insurance premium structures for all non-executive frontline employees would be locked in, fully funded from the executive bonus pool, for a period of no less than 24 months. He looked up at me, his face a mask of utter confusion. "You're protecting—" "I am protecting our employees," I corrected. "The ones who pay for your mistakes, the ones who just voted you out. Their insurance is safe. That is the price of this clean exit. You will sign it." He looked at the paper. He looked at me. He looked at the frosted glass, at the blurred shapes of the employees still gathered in the hall, listening. He understood. He had no power, no leverage, no choice. I placed a single, heavy black pen on the table. He picked it up, his hand, the hand that had signed billion-dollar contracts, that had held the cake knife, was shaking so violently he could barely hold it. The tremor was visible from across the table. I watched him, my gaze unwavering. I saw the blue-green stain on his white cuff, the mark of the party, the mark of his complicity. He put the pen to the paper. His signature, once a bold, decisive slash, was a jagged, spidery, broken line. He pushed the paper back across the table. His hand fell away. I did not take it. I reached back into my portfolio. I pulled out a second, thicker sheaf of documents, stapled at the corner. I slid it across the table to him. On the front page, stamped in red ink, was the seal of the Grayford County Court. What is this?" he whispered. "That," I said, "is my copy of the permanent restraining order, the one I filed this morning, the one that was served to Lorna's lawyer during the vote." He stared at the bright red seal. He did not need to read the words. He understood the seal. "It legally bars you and Lorna Hale from coming within 500 feet of me, my home, or my place of work, which, as of 10 minutes from now, will no longer be this one. It bars all forms of communication, electronic, telephonic, or third party." He looked up, his face ashen. The last thread had been cut. This was not a corporate action. This was an excision. "Rhea," he began. My name. A sound he had not used in that tone. A tone of pleading, in my entire adult life. Before he could say another word, the door to the conference room opened. The corporate secretary, Elena, stood in the doorway. She did not look at him. She looked only at me, and at the papers on the table. I took the signed resignation letter. I took the court order. I walked to the door and handed them to her. Her hand was steady as she took them. The voice of the external lawyer filled the room and the hall outside, one last time. It was coming from the speakerphone on the table, from the intranet feed. "We have received the executed resignation of Graham Vale. We have received confirmation of the court order. The independent audit, led by Massey and Finch, will commence immediately. The board will convene tomorrow to appoint an interim CEO. This concludes the Policy 7.3 debrief. The live stream is now terminated." The red light on the ceiling mic went dark. The feed was finally cut. Elena nodded to me, a look of profound, exhausted respect, and she walked away, a new authority in her step. The silence that followed was different. It was real. This was a private room now, just me, and the man who was my father. And from the hall outside, through the closed door, I could hear the sound. The sound had changed. It was no longer the stunned, horrified silence of a crowd. It was the low, building murmur of voices, of people talking, of employees who had been silent for a decade, finally speaking. They were not whispers of pity. They were not whispers of fear. They were the sounds of calculation, of realization. It was the sound of trust, being rebuilt, from the ground up, in real time. My father heard it, too. He slumped in his chair, a king with no crown, no kingdom, and no family. He put his face in his trembling hands. I looked at him, a final, count assessment. The documentation was complete. I turned, opened the door, and walked out into the noise I had created. I walked out of the conference room and back into the harsh white light of the Skyview Hall. The door clicked shut behind me, sealing my father in with the ruin he had built. The low murmur of the crowd died the instant they saw me. All motion ceased. 200 employees stood frozen, a tableau of a corporate culture in the midst of a tectonic shift. They were not looking at the conference room where their CEO sat suspended, or at the elevators where their CPO had been escorted away like a common shoplifter. They were looking at me. They parted. It was not a gesture of fear or of pity. It was something new. A silent, instinctive clearing of a path, a recognition of a new kind of gravity. No one touched me. No one spoke. The air was thick with the unsaid, with a decade of suppressed grievances that had just been given a voice. I walked through the path they made for me. My destination was the catering table at the far end of the room. My destination was the cake. It sat there, an obscene monument to the lie of the evening. The blue and white frosting was smeared where my father's knife had carved through my name. The candles, nothing more than waxy, colored puddles, had guttered out. The only thing rising from it was a single, impossibly thin tendril of gray smoke from a dead wick. It coiled in the still, recycled air like a final, fading question mark. I ignored the untouched plates, the silver platters of canapes now sweating under the lights. I reached for the clear plastic lid that had come with the cake box. My movements were deliberate, precise. I was still on camera. The red tally light of the main broadcast camera was a malevolent eye, capturing every detail for the legal record, for the intranet, for the history that would be written of this night. I placed the lid over the cake. It clicked into place, a sound of cheap, final plastic. It covered the smeared name, the melted wax, the entire grotesque confection. It boxed up the party. It entombed the lie. Emblazoned on the top of the lid, in a cheerful, looping font that Lorna herself had approved for all corporate catering, was the company's official slogan for her People and Culture initiative, a phrase plastered on posters in every elevator lobby, on every HR email signature. We care loudly. I ran my finger over the raised plastic letters. The irony was so profound, so complete. It was almost a physical thing. I turned. I faced the broadcast camera directly. I found the dead center of the lens. I let it zoom, just as it had before, until my face was the only thing in the frame. They would see the dried blood. They would see the quiet, resolute calm that had replaced it. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. I spoke to the camera, to the shareholders, to the employees, to the reporters, and to the permanent, unblinking record. I gave them the new slogan, the one that would replace the lie. We care truthfully. It was not a promise. It was a statement of fact, a new bylaw, written in blood and broadcast in high definition. As if my words were the final cue, the voice of the corporate secretary, Elena, cut through the hall's sound system. She was standing at the podium now, the tablet held in a steady hand. The finality of the proceedings had given her an authority I had never seen in her before. She read from the screen, her voice the official, procedural instrument of closure. The time is now 10:17 p.m. The actions of the special floor vote are recorded and verified by independent counsel, per the authority of the shareholders. Lorna Hale is terminated for cause. Graham Vale is suspended, effective immediately. All action items are recorded in the official minutes. She looked up, her gaze sweeping the room. This concludes the mandated Ethics Town Hall and the Policy 7.3 post-action debrief. The official recording is now terminated. The red light on the camera went out. It was over. I turned away from the podium, from the cake, from the crowd. I walked toward the main elevators, my heels clicking on the polished concrete floor. The sound was stark, lonely. There was no applause. This was not a victory to be celebrated. It was an amputation. Necessary, life-saving, but brutal. There would be scars. The elevator doors slid open with a soft, metallic sigh. I stepped inside. For a brief moment, before the doors closed, I saw my reflection in the polished steel. The woman staring back was not the one who had entered this room 2 hours ago. Her eyes were clear. The red lipstick was still perfect, and under her left eye, where the cut had bled, there was now a small, neat, sterile white bandage, a piece of first aid I had applied in the conference room, a small, practical act of self-preservation. It was no longer a wound. It was evidence. It was a receipt. It was a declaration. It was a goodbye. There was no background music. There was no triumphant swell. There was only the sound of the elevator doors sliding shut. The end. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I'd love to know where in the world you're tuning in from. So please drop a comment below and share your thoughts. If you enjoyed this, please consider subscribing to the channel, liking this video, and hitting the hype button to help this story reach more listeners.